Hi, I want to tell a story about a friend of mine that was playing in one of the top ska bands down in San Diego, and real nice guy. I don't want to mention his name, but he told me a story about when he was down in San Diego. This is back in early 2000s. Um, he told me he was at band practice um, down in all the military barracks. They rent out the old military barracks, and bands and people go down there, and people rent the barracks, and they're all together. They're lined up for miles out there. But he was doing band practice about getting out about 1:30, 2 a.m. And he said he came out and came to his truck, and he said it was about 100 feet from one building to the other side, the next building, and the buildings were lined up and went for miles. And he said when he walked out and there was lights on up and down the street in front of all the buildings, like little like dim lights. But he said when he came out, um, there was a little crack in between the buildings, separating from one building to the next. There was a little crack, and he said this this smoke gas came out of the crack, and he said right in front of him, this smoke gas came out and turned into a vampire. He said that it had a bald head and glowing yellow eyes and a cape, and it was floating from the knees down were like smoke. But um, so he saw it, and he jumped in his little Toyota truck, and I asked him, I said, what were you on? Were you on something? He said, that's the problem, Patrick. I wasn't on anything. I was sober. Um, I got out of band practice and I was sober. I had like a beer or two. That was it. And he said when he jumped into his truck, as soon as he got in his truck and started it up, he said this thing was right at his window. And he said with teeth, like huge teeth and yellow eyes, and it was floating. He said he started driving, and he was driving out of there like fast, 35, 40 miles an hour, just speeding out of there. And he said the thing was flying right next to his windshield, just flying and following him right next to his windshield. And I said, what was it doing? And he said, I think it was trying to eat me. And that story really stuck with me. I had always thought about it for a long time. He ended up coming back from San Diego after that. And I'll tell you some more stories after this one. That's why I'm telling this one. So he was a real sharp guy. He had graduated Guitar Institute. He was the kind of guy that doesn't talk much. He's really like a quiet guy, and very intelligent. Um, the story that he told me, he said, wow. I said, what was it? He said, well, it looked like a vampire, but it could have been an alien. I'm not sure what it was, but the description, it looked like a vampire. And he was like, yeah, that really like messed with my head. He ended up coming home after that and like getting out of the band and moving back up here to Northern California. I think it was an experience that was like pretty traumatic. But um, I have another friend down in Lake County that he's one of my good childhood friends. We grew up together since we were little kids. And he was telling me this story Um, and this is about, wow, probably about 10 or 12 years ago. He was up visiting me and he said, you wouldn't believe it. He said, I have a next door neighbor, this Mexican kid, and he is the manager of Taco Bell down in down at Clear Lake. And he said he was getting off the night shift, and he said, me and this guy are pretty close. This guy is a sharp guy. He's the manager of Taco Bell. He has a family. He's Mexican, and he said he doesn't do any drugs. He just smokes a little bit, but he doesn't smoke during work time. He said he was completely sober. Um, he told Johnny, and they're good friends because they're neighbors. They live right next to each other down there. Um, he said he got off work and was closing up Taco Bell around 2 a.m. And he said he was riding his bicycle home. There's a concrete trail that goes all along the lake down there. And he was riding his bicycle home. And he said he stopped for a second and he saw somebody out on the lake. Looked like they were standing out on the lake. And he said it wasn't very far out there, maybe 50 feet away, pretty close where he could like see it. And he said at first he thought someone was standing on the a little island out there, but then when he stopped and looked closer, he said it was like a bald with yellow eyes that were glowing and big teeth, with a cape. And he said it was just floating there on the island and it had like smoke from the knees down. And um, he told my friend John that story. And then John came up and told me that story. And I said, wow, that's the same exact kind of being that my friend described down in San Diego. And he said, I said, what do you think? The kid is like, is he crazy or anything? He said, no, this guy is very sharp. He's the manager at Taco Bell. And he said it really scared him. He said that the vampire was just floating out there right off of the water. And he was coming home from work. And yeah, it freaked him out. He didn't take that way to work anymore, and he stopped riding his bicycle. He started driving his car home from work at night. But um, uh, my friend also knew another guy that told him that he was down at Lake County down there, and he said he looked up in the tree, and the same kind of vampire was in a tree, like floating there in the tree. And he had told John, and he's like, wow, these are two people that I know that are, I go, are they tweakers? Are they like on something? He goes, no, this other guy's a family man too. And he saw the same being down there. Um, but I wanted to go back to San Diego. One of my good childhood friends, his family's from San Diego, and we went down there and visited his cousins, and his cousin said, yes, there are vampires down at the boardwalk, and they're down there. There's a place called Dog Beach, and there's vampires down there. And it's known by everybody in San Diego that lives in that area. Everyone knows about the vampires. And I go, what? Come on. And he said, no, there's caves that go all the way down the coast to Mexico, and they live in the caves. And his cousin was pretty much of a tough guy, a badass. But he said he had spent some time in jail, but he said he was dead sober down there. He said one night he was down there, and he said he ran into a bunch of them, and they were in the cave, and they were trying to get him to come into the cave. And he said he got out of there, and he was running across this field down there, or running, yeah, from the beach and then across this field down by Dog Beach, this place called Dog Beach. And he said three of them were flying, and they were chasing him after he left, after they asked him to come into the cave and he ran. He said they chased him, and the guy was a pretty sharp guy. His name was Rich, and he was dead serious. He wasn't making this up. It was kind of like the movie Lost Boys. Have you ever seen that vampire movie Lost Boys? They hang out down at the beach, but um, people were talking about it, and it's like a known thing down there that they're vampires. And if you check out the history on, like, man, the History Channel and all these other things, there are thousands and thousands of cases of vampires. Um, they've always been around throughout history in Romania, Transylvania, and like in deep Russia, in certain places. These vampires are known and real. I was watching this thing on the History Channel that they were hundreds and hundreds of stories of these vampires getting out of their graves and, like, killing people in these towns, and the townspeople would have to get together and dig up their graves and put a giant rock in their mouth and then wire it shut, and sometimes cutting off their heads and dismembering them. And because there was history of these dead people coming out of the graves and um, vampires. There's so many stories in all the different cities, like Portland, San Francisco, San Diego, and all of the big port cities. And down in New Orleans, there's like so much history of the vampires. Um, I thought that I would tell these stories because I have a lot of goth people that I see are following me, and I know they would probably get a kick out of it. Um, Honestly, I'm not really scared of vampires. I'm more scared of the politicians. Um, so, you know, um, there's all kinds of stuff going on in this world that we are blind to. The church has had record of it forever, the Catholic Church, and they've even had their own vampire hunters, and they've covered it up a lot. So, but I thought it was a cool story that I would share with some people. Um, Kind of like, yeah, different. But, you know, for all my goth viewers, I hope you guys like that story. And God bless you. Be safe. Thank you. Please give me a follow. Please give me a like.